almost got arrested over a Wi-Fi password change. But the truth was far more terrifying. Sounds absurd? Wait until you hear what really happened, because what the police uncovered was far more chilling. Darius Coleman was the kind of person you'd look at twice, not because he stood out, but precisely because he didn't. He lived a quiet life, but not quite a lonely one. For Darius, silence wasn't avoidance. It was a deliberate choice, a shield he used to protect himself from the noise of a world he never felt the need to join. He didn't care for small talk. He didn't invite people over. He never attended neighborhood parties or joined community group chats. Every morning, he'd rise early, while the rest of Crestwood still slept, water the plants, tidy the yard, and disappear back into his neatly kept cube-shaped house. He worked remotely in tech, a field that demanded precision, logic, and risk assessment, all three of which Darius was borderline obsessive about. His yard was immaculate, grass trimmed like carpet, bushes sculpted with surgical care, not to show off, but because control made him feel safe. Darius only spoke to his neighbors when absolutely necessary, and even then his words were brief, polite, never overly friendly. To most of the residents of Crestwood, Missouri, he was like a shadow, always there, but no one really knew anything about him. And that exactly was how he wanted it. Until one seemingly harmless action made him the center of attention, not just in his neighborhood, but with local law enforcement. It started on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Darius had just wrapped up a long work session and decided to run a speed test on his internet. Lately, his Wi-Fi had been unreliable, video calls were lagging, music kept freezing. At first, he blamed his service provider, but then something felt off. Have you ever had the strange feeling that someone else was sharing your Wi-Fi? Darius opened his router settings on his phone. A strange device appeared. Its name wasn't a string of random numbers like default devices. It had a clear intentional label, Crestwood_I1. Weird. He lived alone. Phone, laptop, TV, that was it. He had never shared the password with anyone. So whose device was it? Frustrated, Darius disconnected all unknown devices from his network and decided to change his Wi-Fi password. He stepped out into the yard to get a stronger signal, standing along the side of the house, focused on typing the new password into his phone. And at that exact moment, Melanie Foster, his next-door neighbor, she saw a man standing in his yard, eyes glued to his phone, fingers moving constantly, and to her the scene looked off. Melanie had never been particularly fond of Darius, not because he'd done anything wrong, but because he never smiled, never showed up to block parties, never laughed out loud like the rest of them. That kind of different always made Melanie uneasy. And now that man was sneaking around doing something with his phone, and in her mind, red flags went up. He's hacking. That's it, hacking something. Maybe the neighborhood cameras, maybe someone's phone, maybe something worse. Without a second thought, Melanie picked up the phone and dialed 911. Yes, I'd like to report suspicious activity. My neighbor is in his yard doing something strange with his phone. I'm not sure what, but it doesn't feel right. The dispatcher asked a few follow-up questions, but Melanie didn't have clear answers. She just repeated one thing. I know something's wrong, I'm certain. Police were dispatched immediately. As for Darius, he had no idea his quiet afternoon was about to turn into a nightmare. Oh, what was even more terrifying, none of them realized the real danger had nothing to do with Darius. He had just finished typing in the new password, hadn't even reconnected to the network, when sirens pierced the air nearby. At first, he thought something was happening down the street, but as the sirens grew louder, His heart began to race. A question for you. How would you react if the police suddenly showed up just because you changed your Wi-Fi password? He watched as the patrol car slowed, then came to a full stop right outside his gate. 2 officers stepped out. One was tall and broad-shouldered with sharp features, Inspector Louis Navarro. The other, Officer Belle Carter, was slightly shorter but carried a calm, commanding presence in her silence. Darius exhaled slowly, deeply. Here we go. He didn't move, remaining at the side of the house as the officers approached. Navarro's hand hovered near his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a very clear message. "Sir," Navarro said, voice calm but edged, "we received a report of suspicious activity at this address. Can you tell us what you were doing?" Darius furrowed his brow, glancing between the two of them. "Suspicious activity," he repeated, incredulous. "I was changing my Wi-Fi password. In my own yard." There was a note of disbelief in his tone, but he stayed composed. He knew how quickly situations like this could spiral if handled poorly. Navarro shot a quick glance toward Carter, then turned his focus back on Darius. "You life, yeah?" Darius almost laughed. The question was absurd. His car was in the driveway, his name was on the mailbox, and he'd mowed that front lawn himself. "Yes. I've lived here for 3 years," he said, arms folding across his chest, his gaze beginning to harden. But before Navarro could respond, a voice rang out from behind them. "He's lying." Darius turned. And unsurprisingly, there she was. Melanie Foster, standing on her porch like a self-permitted neighborhood watch captain, arms crossed, eyes locked on the scene like she was witnessing a high-stakes criminal takedown. "He's always out there doing something," she pressed on, her voice sharp. "Sometimes it's his phone. Sometimes he's just looking around like he's spying on people. Today he's been standing there for over 10 minutes tapping away at who knows what." Darius couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was she serious? "I was adjusting my Wi-Fi router settings," he said flatly, voice lowered but clear, "because someone I don't know is using my internet." Melanie scoffed. "Oh, right. And I'm just supposed to believe that?" Navarro turned to her. "Ma'am, do you have any evidence that Mr. Coleman has broken any laws?" Melanie hesitated. Of course she didn't. All she had was a feeling. "I'm not sure," she admitted, "but I think he should be checked." Navarro exhaled, visibly losing patience. He turned back to Darius. "Sir, would you mind if we took a quick look at your router settings, just to clear this up?" Darius clenched his jaw. He knew full well he didn't owe anyone an explanation, but he also knew things could escalate in the worst ways if he refused. "Fine," he said through his teeth, then unlocked his phone. He raised it, pulled up the router settings, and spoke with calm precision. "Here, take a look." Navarro leaned in, eyes scanning the list of connected devices. And right then, his expression changed. Crestwood_I1. The unknown device hauler was still online. "Whose device is this?" Navarro asked, his voice tightening. Darius shook his head. "It's not mine." Officer Carter stepped forward, brow furrowed. "So someone's using your Wi-Fi without permission?" Darius nodded. "And I don't think they're just freeloading. Look at the connection log. That device is active, constant, no interruptions. Someone's watching." The air shifted. The front yard fell into a tense, heavy silence. This was no longer a petty neighborly misunderstanding. This was something far more dangerous. On the porch, Melanie, who just moments ago had been so sure of herself, now furrowed her brow, visibly unsettled. "Wait," she spoke up, her voice much quieter now. "What do you mean, watching?" Darius turned toward her, his gaze sharp as ice. It means someone is watching, and not just me, possibly everyone in this neighborhood. His words dropped like a boulder. Heavy, frightening, and real. Melanie, once certain she was doing the right thing, now seemed small in the wide-open yard. Watching was never part of the narrative she had imagined. Navarro straightened up, his eyes narrowing in focus. "All right," he said, his tone now much more serious. "Let's go inside. I want the full story." Darius didn't resist. He led both officers into the house, the slow burn of frustration trailing behind every step. He hadn't done anything wrong. And yet here he was, being treated like a suspect in his own home. Melanie followed too. She wasn't sure why, but something deep inside told her she needed to hear this. Inside, Darius placed his phone on the dining table, connected the router to his laptop, and projected everything onto a larger screen. The list of devices appeared. That same name, Crestwood_I1, still active. Carter leaned in, her eyes locked on the screen. "Can you tell what kind of device it is?" Darius navigated quickly through the settings. "Not exactly, but..." He opened the activity log and froze. Navarro immediately picked up on the change in his expression. "What is it?" Darius swallowed hard, voice tight. "It accessed a camera." The room went dead silent. Melanie blinked. I don't understand. What camera?" Darius turned to her. His eyes no longer held anger, only warning. "Line!" "My home security cameras. Someone's accessed them, watching the live feed." He turned the laptop around. On the screen, camera footage flickered to life. The living room, hallway, back door. "Someone's been watching me. From outside, and possibly for a long time." Officer Carter's hand gripped her holster strap tighter. Her voice turned cold. "You're telling us someone has been monitoring your life minute by minute? You're saying they're watching you through your own security system?" she asked again, her tone low and steady. Darius nodded, exhaling sharply. "That's exactly what I'm saying." But then, his heart skipped. As he scrolled through the access logs, it became clear. This didn't stop at his house. A list of IP addresses filled the screen. Some matched his own network, but others... "No way," Darius muttered. Navarro leaned in, his brow tight. "What are you seeing?" Darius pointed at the entries. "This person, they're not just watching me, they're watching multiple homes in this neighborhood." Melanie stepped back, shaking her head. "No, that can't be true." Daria turned fully toward her, eyes cold as ice. "Are you sure?" He clicked into another tab. A new video feed popped up. Dim lighting, a narrow hallway, then a living room, then a bedroom. Melanie froze, one hand flying to her mouth. "Wait, that's..." Darius didn't need to ask. He recognized it instantly. It was her house. She wobbled, collapsing into a chair, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "What the hell is going on?" Navarro barked. Darius clenched his jaw. "If I'm right, someone in this neighborhood set up a fake Wi-Fi network. It looks like a normal connection. People connect without thinking, and their devices get compromised." Carter narrowed her eyes. "A man-in-the-middle attack." Darius nodded. "Exactly." Melanie's voice faltered. "You're saying someone's been watching me, my family, all this time?" Darius met her gaze squarely. "Yes, and possibly not just you." She sank deeper into the chair, burying her head in her hands. "Oh, God." Navarro clenched his jaw. We need to find out who's behind this, and fast. But what none of them knew, the culprit was closer than they thought. Wasting no time, Navarro grabbed his radio and called for cybercrime support. "We're dealing with something bigger now," he murmured to Carter. "If someone's running a surveillance network like this, it's not just invasion of privacy. It's a major felony." Carter nodded, her face tight. "And if we don't stop it in time, who knows how far they've already gone." Darius stayed at the screen, fingers scrolling through streams of data. He wasn't a hacker, but he knew enough to follow a digital trail. Then he froze, his eyes widened, his entire body went still. No way. Navarro looked up. "What is it?" Darius turned the screen toward them. "The data, it's not being sent overseas, it's not going to some offshore server or dark web relay." He swallowed, as if the words felt unreal. "It's being sent to an address right here in the neighborhood." Melanie's eyes went wide. "You mean the person doing this is nearby?" Darius nodded. "The data's coming from a house just a few doors down." Noah's face darkened. "Can you pinpoint which house exactly?" Darius moved quickly, as if every passing second burned hotter inside him. He matched connection timestamps, checked signal strength, scrutinizing every metric. Within minutes, one address popped up on the screen. His heart sank to the pit of his stomach. He recognized it instantly. And he wasn't the only one. Melanie did too. "No?" she whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be. That's..." Darius cut her off, voice sharp as steel. "Brandon's house." Brandon Foster, her nephew, 22, a college student, moved in with her a few months ago. A quiet kid, always glued to his computer, kept to himself, never really talked to the neighbors. All the little details that once seemed harmless now formed a terrifying picture. Melanie went pale, the color draining from her face. "No, it can't be him. Brandon wouldn't do this." Carter stepped forward, voice firm. "We need to speak with him, right now." Melanie hesitated. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, in the part of the soul that knows before the mind admits, a cold voice whispered, "Who else could it be?" "I'll take you," she murmured, barely audible. Darius stood. "I'm coming too." Navarro turned, his stare unyielding. "No, you stay here. Let us handle it." Darius clenched his fists. He was the one who had uncovered everything, who had exposed the truth, and now he was expected to sit back while someone else closed it? But he knew pushing back would only complicate things. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth, "but you'd better get the truth out of him." What Darius didn't know was that the truth they were about to uncover was darker than anything he had imagined. Melanie's hands trembled as she led Navarro and Carter across the narrow street toward her house. Each step felt heavier than the last. Brandon, her nephew, the one she took in when he hit hard times, the one she encouraged to go back to school, the one she defended even against her own family. It couldn't be him. But then, like a blade twisting in her mind, that voice echoed again. Who else could it be? She opened the front door, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "Brandon, can you come down here for a minute?" Silence. No footsteps, no reply, just an eerie stillness. Navarro glanced at Carter. No words were needed. They both stepped inside. "We're going upstairs," he said, voice low but firm. Melanie didn't argue. She just stood there, arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if trying to keep from falling apart. Their breaths shallow, Their steps deliberate, they climbed the staircase, each footfall bringing them closer to the bedroom at the end of the hall. The door stood still, unnervingly quiet. Navarro approached and knocked 3 times. Hard. "Brandon. Police. We need to talk." No response. Then, a faint sound, a chair creaking, soft footsteps shifting inside. Carter rested a hand on her holstered weapon, her eyes fixed on the door. "Okay, open the door, Nessa." The doorknob turned slightly. The hinge gave a long, groaning squeak, slicing through the dense silence. The door creaked open just enough to reveal Brandon Foster's face. His eyes blinked rapidly, panicked. His hands fluttered nervously at his sides, unsure where to go. "What's going on?" he asked, voice tight and shaky. "What's happening?" Navarro studied him, his gaze sharp as a blade. "We've reason to believe you accessed your neighbor's home security systems without permission. Want to explain that?" Brandon's brow furrowed, not in shock, but calculation. His fingers curled slightly, as if trying to grip something invisible. "What? No. I don't know what you're talking about." Carter stepped forward. "Can we take a look at your laptop?" Brandon's jaw tightened. "You don't have a warrant." Abray took another step. His voice weighted with authority. "I could get one, but right now, we're giving you a chance to tell the truth before this gets worse." The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Brandon exhaled, ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting. I didn't do anything illegal, I just..." Navarro cut in, voice sharp as a blade. "Then why is your IP address tied to a series of unauthorized Wi-Fi intrusions in this neighborhood?" Brandon froze. There was no denying it now. Melanie stepped back, her voice cracking. "Brandon, tell me this has nothing to do with you." For the first time since the questioning began, Brandon's expression truly shifted. A crack appeared. I didn't think it would get this far," he whispered. "It just started as a joke. I just wanted to see if I could get into someone's Wi-Fi. Just to mess around." Navarro's voice turned icy. "You admit to hacking other people's networks?" "You accessed other people's Wi-Fi?" Carter pressed, her gaze razor sharp. Brandon hesitated and nodded. Melanie stopped breathing. Brandon went on, voice now shaking, speeding up. "At first, it was just a joke. I was curious. I saw an unsecured Wi-Fi and tried logging in. But then I saw the security cameras." "And then what? Curiosity or obsession?" Carter interrupted, narrowing her eyes. Brandon stayed silent. No answer. Navarro's patience had run dry. "How many people have you spied on?" Long pause. Then Brandon's voice, barely a whisper. I don't know." Melanie took a step back like she'd been slapped. Brandon looked at her for the first time, truly looked at her, his eyes filled with remorse. "I swear, I never meant to hurt anyone. I just..." "Random Foster," Navarro interrupted, voice like a verdict. "You're under arrest for unauthorized access to computer systems and unlawful surveillance." Brandon's face went pale. "Wait, no." But Carter had already pulled out the cuffs. Within seconds, his wrists were locked tight with a cold mechanical click. Melanie turned away, covering her face as tears spilled freely. Darius had been right, from the very beginning. And the worst part, she was the one who had called the police on him, while the real threat had been inside her house all along. Brandon didn't resist. He just stood there, head down, wrists shackled, while Navarro clearly read him his rights. It was over. Melanie struggled to breathe. She couldn't look at Brandon. Not now. Not after realizing the person she had trusted most, the nephew she'd welcomed into her home, defended without hesitation, had violated the privacy of their entire neighborhood. Navarro led Brandon out the door. But before stepping outside, he paused and looked toward the sidewalk, where Darius still stood silently, watching. "You were right," Navarro said, voice calm but weighty. "If it weren't for you, this might never have been uncovered." Darius didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted from Brandon to Melanie, not with anger, but a deep, weary disappointment. Then he finally spoke. "You know what's really crazy?" His voice was quiet, but each word landed with gravity. "I was just standing in front of my house, changing my Wi-Fi password. I wasn't doing anything wrong, and I'm the one you call the cops on." Melanie recoiled, unable to respond. There was no defense, no excuse strong enough. I was wrong," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I judged you. I made a baseless assumption," she added softly. "And it was completely unfair." Darius didn't respond immediately. He let her words hang in the air, like a wound left open. Then he shook his head gently and turned to walk back toward his house. "I don't need an apology," he said over his shoulder, voice calm but heavy as stone. "Don't make that mistake again." The door closed behind him, not in anger, not in spite, but like a quiet, dignified period at the end of a long sentence. Navarro and Carter exchanged a brief glance, then turned and led Brandon, the person behind it all, toward the patrol car. Melanie stood alone in the middle of the street, as if time itself had frozen around her. The truth had been right in front of her the entire time, but she had been too busy looking the wrong way. The wrong person, the wrong direction. And that mistake, the kind born of bias, of baseless suspicion, would follow her for a long time. False judgment has a cost. Rush conclusions, built on prejudice or fear, can shatter the lives of the innocent, while real threats go undetected in silence. Instead of leaping to conclusions, pause. Listen. Observe. Because the truth, more often than not, doesn't come from where you expect it. And the one who looks suspicious isn't always the one who's guilty.